Part of the 19th century, there occurred the Patch Hollow tragedy. Rapidly returning to primitive wilderness is what was once well-settled land. On the east side of Bear Mountain, running in a northerly and southerly direction, is Patch Hollow.
Okay.
And there was a road there. And at the south end was Luther Hale, and then lived the patriarch of the family, David Patch, who had built a substantial house. And then came Simon Patches and Edmund Patches. And further on north, Roland Wheeler had built a log house. And here was the scene of the tragedy. And the cellar hole for the Roland Wheeler house is right here in the pucker brush, which is why I was out there in the poison parsnip.
Oh, I walked over it.
Yeah. Did you see it? Yeah.
Stay out of the sun.
Now, Roland Wheeler had married a daughter of David Patch, and he was a man of violent passions and jealous disposition. Report said he was guilty of indiscretions with his wife's sister. And the community, to show resentment for such conduct, planned to turn out and give him a coat of tar and feathers, and perchance ride him on a rail. They were well organized and comprised of young men from the village of Wallingford, from Sugar Hill, and even from Shrewsbury, my hometown. The threats were made so publicly that Wheeler, hearing of them, swore that if attacked he would defend himself. Visiting the village of Wallingford, he went to the blacksmith shop, made a large file into a two-edged knife, and fitted it to a handle.
Right here at the
You know these places. On the night of May 11th, 1831, the party set out from Wallingford village. Several carried jugs of rum, one a bucket of tar, another a sack of feathers. The detachment from Shrewsbury, my hometown, got lost in the woods, either from darkness or too frequent potations.
Oh, Shrewsbury
After
drunk.
wandering about for a time, they went home and reported they'd had a great time with old Wheeler. But the next day, hearing how the affair terminated, they were glad to make it known they had never reached his house. Now, in the fields south of the Hollow, where we walked through earlier, the parties from the village and Sugar Hill met. They compared the contents of their various jugs, and they proceeded to disguise themselves. Isaac Osborne, who was the foreman at James Ruston's hat shop, was appointed the leader, and the party came up the road until they came to Wheeler's house, and there they called for admission. They claimed they were going to Shrewsbury Pond, Spring Lake, and wanted some fire. However, Wheeler had braced the door with a long rail against the opposite wall, and feeling secure, he paid no heed to them. Finding it impossible to force the door, they pried a hole in the gable end of the roof, and Isaac Osborne, James Sherman, and Silas Congdon sprang into the house. Right there. Page 3. Then commenced a terrible struggle in the dark. Sherman got Wheeler by the hair and began to drag him out, when Wheeler commenced to use his knife to deadly effect. The rail was knocked down, and others rushing in from the outside added to the confusion. Benjamin Brownell received a stab in the side. James Sherman received 14 wounds. Silas Congdon seized the blade of the knife in his hand, and it was twisted around and wrenched from him, cutting out the inside of his hand. Isaac Osborne fell across the bed and died without a cry.
I feel like we need fighting sound effects here.
Right.
Can you guys yell like, ah!
During the struggle, Wheeler slipped out of his shirt, dived under the bed, raised some floorboards, crawled under the house, and made his escape into the woods. Meantime, those within the house had got hold of Osborne's body and threw it about the floor, thinking it was Wheeler. It was not long before they noticed the man was dead when they dropped the body and hastily left the house. In the meantime, Mrs. Wheeler, with many shrieks,
Thank you, Prickles.
had run for her father's house, and the rioters, for so they were termed in the indictment, hurriedly dispersed, and James Sherman made his way to Dr. John Fox's home in Wallingford Village so as to get his wounds dressed, and he informed the good doctor of the circumstances, urging him to hasten to the Hollow, fearing someone was killed. And many times afterwards, in recounting the experience, Dr. Fox claimed that what he saw within that log hut was the most terrible sight he could recall. By the dim light of a bit of tallow candle, he noticed the livid body of Osborne on the bed, and the cabin literally soaked in blood.
Ew.
Wow. That's quite a story.
It is a question how Wheeler, who had passed out entirely
But
naked,
wait, there's more.
the night in the woods.
He was entirely naked in the woods.
Wow.
Before daylight, He fed from the Hartsboro section of Wallingford. He stole a
That's
shirt.
a long way from here.
He stole a shirt from Mrs. Horton's clothesline,
So he stole a shirt.
and he selected an unfrequented barn to spend the day in. It was entirely empty, excepting 2 bundles of rye straw. With these, he made himself a straw dress. And thus
Exhibit
clad,
B.
made his way across country to his sister's home in Paulet.
Oh, just a short walk.
Yeah. Here he was arrested, and the following day he was brought back to Wallingford for trial. Court was called in the hotel, but so great was the interest that it was moved to the Baptist church. Upon hearing the facts of the case, the prisoner was discharged. Why? Self-defense, of course.
Yeah.
His acquittal was unexpected,
This is Vermont, after all.
and it intended to intensify the excitement. After Wheeler's release, he was with his wife, left town, afterwards lived in Danby Four Corners, and thence went to the Great West. The rioters, in turn, were held for trial in the county court, and according to the records, Joseph Hager, Reuben Wood were fined $60 each, and James Huntoon, James Sherman, and Herman Michaels $40.
Oh. James Huntoon, that's my family.
There you go.
And that was a lot of money back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, sure. It worked years to pay that off.
And the Reverend Thorpe, who wrote this, said, I am indebted for my information to Dr. Hitt, who wrote the article on this phase of Wallingford's history before it was printed, and he was at great pains to see it was authentic. The dreadful tragedy must have left its blight upon Patch Hollow, for shortly afterwards the dwellings were unoccupied, and it has never since been used for a residence.
Oh. Okay, Prickles. I'm going to zoom in on you here, Prickles. Prickles, what'd you think of the story? Oh, she's clapping. Yay. Prickles, were you scared at all? Marge, you're nodding too.
Try to do it without mimicking it.
Anybody have any other comments to put on this fine, soon-to-be-on YouTube video?
Well, when I heard the story, it kind of blew me away, because this seems like such an idyllic, peaceful
Yeah.
spot, doesn't it? And
It
hard to
does.
know that 180 years ago there was blood and screaming and all sorts of
My mother was.
Marge, any comments?
So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Barry, give us a twirl in that skirt.
They said it was good for a 31-inch waist, so I knew I was in trouble.
Oh. Thank you, Barry.